Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Portland State University Art and Social Practice Program's annual conference, Assembly 2021. My name is Kiara Walls, and I am your host for today. Thanks so much for joining us. This year, our social practice conference comes to you in the form of a live television station. So what you are about to experience is not just your average Assembly conference, it's Assembly TV. Take a look at the official Assembly TV guide on your website for event listings, project descriptions, even a drawing contest, and a word search. Oh, and don't forget to read your social practice horoscope on page 26 for guidance on which events to attend. Harold, would you mind putting the TV guide link in the chat? Thank you. We've got a great week of programming ahead of us. A boxing class, a plant show, and tell-all, a bunny tour, a stunt show, and so much more. Each assembly event will be recorded and put up on your YouTube channel for you to enjoy again. If you're new to Zoom, you can check out the link in the chat for a brief overview. And finally, a note about accessibility. The daily graduate lectures will have ASL interpretation. If you plan to utilize ASL interpretation for these events, please join us in Zoom rather than YouTube. Now, without further ado, I present to you our first event of the day, our current Twilight Zone, Auditing Whiteness and Pop Culture, brought to you by Not Neutral. Today, we are joined by first years and alumni who will introduce themselves and share a fun fact. Y'all know me, and my fun fact is I have a twin brother who is 15 minutes older than me. I'm gonna pass it to Karen.
Thanks, Kiara. My name's Karen. I'm one of the first years, and I use they, them pronouns. One of my fun fact is that I am the same height as Danny DeVito, and I'll pass it to Becca.
Hi, my name is Becca, and I'm a first year in the program as well. I live in New York City. My pronouns are they, them, and my fun fact is that I spend a lot of time in Times Square. How about you, Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Glazer. I'm a first year student. I'm in downtown Portland, Oregon. And a fun fact about me is my initials spell leg, L-E-G. How about you? Next person who I can't remember.
It's me, Laura.
Oh, Roshni.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everybody. I'm Roshni Thakur. I use she, her pronouns. I am a graduate of the MFA Art and Social Practice program, graduated last year, and now I live in Northeast Portland. And my fun fact is I can move one ear. Okay, I'm going to give it back to Kiara.
Thanks, Roshni. And Deanna Cortez Marcellus is also a part of our crew who's working right now, but will join us later. So, what do Dance Moms, Family Guy, The Twilight Zone, and The Bachelor all have in common? Spoiler alert, white supremacy. Not Neutral, a mixed race space for first year students, focusing on racial equity and community building, invites you to join us in a critical scoring party of American culture through popular media. Using a DIY scorecard, we'll collectively watch cringeworthy clips from classic and contemporary television shows to evaluate their relationships with race, gender, age, and ability, perfectionism, paternalism, defensiveness. The current Twilight Zone we live in has got all of them. But before we hop into the Twilight Zone, just a few things to note. Our program has 3 segments, and we are taking all of the questions at the very end. Use the chat for comments and questions, and our lovely tech folks will round them up. We made a resource sheet with links to the scorecards, as well as links to other tools and articles we use during our class. You can find them in the chat. Lastly, I'm going to share some community guidelines. Roshni, can you pull up the community agreements, please? Okay, I'm going to go through these. So the first is take care of yourself. We are here to connect, but be attentive to your body. Zoom can be an alienating and exhausting place. Mute. Please keep yourself Please keep to yourself on mute if you are not speaking. One person speaks at a time. Please use the raise hand function or use the chat to make comments and ask questions. Take space, make space. Be mindful of how much you speak. Please leave space for others to speak. Stories stay, but the lessons can be shared. Please keep this space confidential when stories are being shared. Ouch, oops. Type ouch into the chat if something hurtful or uncomfortable occurs. Types oops if you recognize you unintentionally impacted someone painfully. Respect differences. No one knows everything, but together we know a lot. Create a space for multiple truths and embrace curiosity. Share gratitude and feedback, and accept non-closure. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Roshni.
Thank you, Kiara. Thanks, everybody. As you know, my name is Roshni Thakur. I'm a 2020 social practice MFA graduate, and I'm also an artist in residence at the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon, known as APANO, and it's a social justice organization in East Portland for Asians and Pacific Islanders. I began Not Neutral for the 2020-2021 school year to help onboard the new students into the MFA program and to create an intentional space to create dialogue and develop tools for race and equity in art and non-art spaces grounded in a BIPOC perspective. The terms are divided into 3 sections. The first term was more of a discussion group so we can get to know each other, and students reflected on their practice and their past works through a set of reflective questions around equity. The second term consisted of assignments on whiteness, including interviews, audits, and attending events to develop a critical racial lens. And so this last term, we have been shaping this event that you are currently in now, using the time to collaborate on a public project together and share our findings from the year. Thank you all for being here. And then I think it's gonna be Laura. We keep missing each other today, Laura, to introduce our scorecard.
Thanks, Roshni. In Not Neutral, our objective was to collectively create an understanding around whiteness in America, how it relates to us as art and social practice students and as people living in the United States. One way we did this was documenting how whiteness shows up in our lives using the form of an audit. In this context, audit means examining information. We want to critically engage with what we are watching, reading, and experiencing. As we audited our daily lives, we tracked our findings and shared them during class. We observed, listened, and took notes. Some questions we considered while auditing were, who is in the room? Who isn't in the room? Were there any decisions being made? What topics were discussed? How are newcomers welcomed? Is there space for feedback? How does whiteness show up? During my audit, I examined the radio programs that I listen to every day. I realized that white people produce and broadcast the majority of what I hear. Becca, what did you find in your audit?
For my audit, I kept a log from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and documented the various media that I encountered and people that I encountered in my neighborhood as I went to a thrift shop and a coffee shop. And I noticed that there was a predominance of whiteness, white people in my neighborhood, in the stores that I shopped at, and in even down to like the exercise videos that I watched. How about you, Karen?
During my audit day, I spent some time cleaning out my wallet, and I found a lot of interesting receipts and cards in there. And one thing, when I was doing a little research on some of the items I found in my wallet, that was surprising to me is that I learned that Trader Joe's, where I shop sometimes, is owned by a company that was started by two brothers who were members of the Nazi army. What about you, Kiera?
That's very interesting, Karin. So for my for my audit, I just did research about what I was using on a daily as far as like my car and the different grocery stores that I was shopping at, and also just where I was working. And a common thread that I found is that most of the people that are in charge of these different things were white males. So that was something that I noticed with my audit.
Thanks, everybody. Our auditing experiences were powerful. So we decided to make a tool for auditing whiteness. And the tool is a scorecard. The scorecard is a handy tool for auditing on the go. We think of it like a printed sheet in your back pocket that you can pull out and use to examine what you observe and experience. Like maybe using it during a class at school, while watching a movie with friends, or during a conversation with a family member. Our scorecard is similar to other tools, like the Bechdel test and the culturally responsive curriculum scorecard. We expanded this test to critically consider white supremacy within the media. From our research on white supremacy culture, we reviewed a document on white supremacy culture and chose 7 categories for the scorecard. In a sense, they are each a lens that we look through as we audit. Karin, what are the categories?
Well, our first category is individualism. This is what we see when individual efforts are valued more than collaboration or cooperation. This can lead to isolation and competition. Our second category is power hoarding. Put simply, this is when power is not shared. This occurs when power is seen and treated as a limited resource. Those in power do not see themselves as power hoarders, but think that their being in power is the best case scenario for all parties. Then we have cultural appropriation. This is what happens when power dynamics are manipulated and an inappropriate adoption of one society's practices, customs, or ideas by another, usually more dominant society. Paternalism shows up in the decision-making process when the people in charge think they're making the right choices for those their decisions affect, but do not take time to ask or consider the viewpoints of those they're making decisions for. Then we have perfectionism. This way of thinking does not leave space or time to learn from mistakes. There is only the perfect way and the wrong way. Fear of open conflict is another category in which there's a fear of ruffling feathers and an emphasis on politeness. Lastly, we have defensiveness. This shows up when someone treats any sort of criticism as threatening, inappropriate, or rude. Ideas that challenge the status quo are not embraced. So, now that we've had a little introduction to our categories, we'll watch our first clip. This is a clip from the Twilight Zone. It's pieces of an episode called The Shelter from 1961. You will have time during, so we'll put the scorecard in the chat. I see Becca put it in there, thank you. So follow along while we watch the clip. It's about a little over 7 minutes, and you will have about 30 seconds after the clip to finish up any extra questions you may have on the scorecard.
So everybody click on the scorecard and get ready. if you need some snacks, we're just gonna have some movie watching right now. And the first one, as Karen said, is starting from the original The Twilight Zone. So here we go. Woo!
Excellent.
Ooh.
All right, so now we'll take a little bit more time. Hopefully you were able to take a look at the scorecard during that clip, but now you'll have some time to focus on it and finish up any extra questions. Make sure you hit submit when you're done. That's on